Whether you're a life coach, therapist, biohacker, invested in wellness, or in the healthcare profession, if you have an intention to work in psychedelic spaces, you're in the right place then. If you're called, get involved. But first, get informed. Let's talk the 4 N's: intake, intention, in-space integration, leading to deeper transformations. Psychedelic Coach Podcast, Todd Cole. Walk you through the process, it's all possible. Leave space for the follow-through. Most importantly, integration is not optional.
What up, y'all? There's a lot of buzz going on right now around legalities and decriminalization and will I get into trouble for psychedelics and state-altering plants. And I want to talk to y'all about what's going on at Ka and Pathogenics. They have a new category of natural and pathogenic supplements that are designed to help people feel more alive as they navigate everyday anxiety and stress. All of their proprietary offerings feature Kana, which is a powerful South African botanical being a plant, that's clinically proven to lift mood and sharpen cognitive function. And I know I love to have my cognitive function lifted because I'm always talking about stuff and getting deep. And Kana, this supplement, I've gone through trials with this supplement. I used their first batch and it was awesome. But the new formulation has been absolutely wonderful for me. And Cole and I microdosed this for 30 days straight. And I mean, the shift, and you know, I'm skeptical about everything. The lift in my mood after 30 days was after 15 days was absolutely amazing. My ability to show up cognitively clear was tremendous. And my mood, just the way I felt, the way I feel when I take this supplement is amazing. And Kana is known to many as the happiest plant on earth. It's been an essential ingredient, a medicinal and social and spiritual cultural space in South Africa for millennia. Its discovery was revolutionary and it was unearthed by the early inhabitants known to mankind. Okay, so the South African hunter-gatherers chewed on Kana's roots to enhance their mood, focus, and energy while on multi-day hunts. So this is a plant that is absolutely amazing. It's gentle. It's empathogenic. It's actually like a natural SSRI. And so if you're taking SSRIs or SNRIs or MAOIs, this is not the plant for you. But I'm telling you, this is amazing. And we're actually we're going to be doing some test groups with this and running a microdosing group with this, and it's completely legal. And our coaches are actually leaning into it as well. So I highly recommend you slide over to Ka and Pathogenics and check out what they're doing with their Kana supplements. It's absolutely stupendous, miraculous, fantastic, and all the good stuff. So we have the link in our show notes and you'll get 10% off if you use the link in our show notes. I love you and I can't wait to see you on the podcast. Welcome to the Psychedelic Coach Podcast. This is Ty, and before we proceed, I want you to take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast. It's really important that you subscribe, fam, so that you don't miss what's going on. We have a lot of information here at the Psychedelic Coach Podcast that we're sharing, and we want you to avail yourself of it. And please, when you love this, and I know that when you get through the entire episode, you will love this, share this with somebody who you believe it will support. So today I want to talk about shame. And I was perusing all of the titles and the episodes, and I don't believe I've done an episode dedicated to the introduction of shame and how we navigate shame. I was invited down to the Tantra Festival in Tepoztlan, Mexico in 2020, like in the heat of COVID. I went down there and it was an amazing event. And they asked me to teach about shame. And they asked me to teach about intimacy. And so I put together a presentation for something that I call the Roadmap to Intimacy. And I also put a presentation for something called an exploration of the shame device. And the way I see shame, now people will put shame into a space of shame is an emotion. And I agree with that okay? There's an and to that. Shame is also a device. Shame is a device. It is probably the most effective You know what? I would have to say, in my opinion, and everybody has an opinion, right? In my opinion, shame is the most effective human control device that we've ever had in the existence of humanity. If you want to control human beings, you apply shame. Now, how do you apply an emotion to people? Well, there's a device that activates the shame complex. And when I say the shame complex, shame, it's in and of itself, when it's activated, it's not one emotional space. It is many emotional spaces at the same time. And when many emotional spaces are activated at the same time, a person can get into an overwhelm space. And when a person is in overwhelm, it's hard for them to do anything. Right? Have you ever been overwhelmed before? I know I have. And when I am in overwhelm, I can't do anything because I'm trying to do multiple things at the same time. I'm trying to navigate all these different things, and I'm navigating all these different signals that I have. And so overwhelm is actually an amazing signal that teaches us, that tells us to simplify. You've got to simplify. You're not going to be able to do anything until you navigate these things one at a time. So you have to simplify. And so when you simplify, you're able to actually navigate things. The thing with shame is when shame gets a person into a place of overwhelm, and overwhelm is one of the emotional spaces that shame generates. When a person gets into overwhelm, they look for a remedy. And if the remedy is provided by something outside of the self, like if a person says, "Oh yeah, you know what? If you want this resolved, I got it. You got to do this for me, or you've got to perform this way, or you got to show up in this way, and I'll remove all of the problems for you." And it's simplified, and then all of that feeling goes away, all of that overwhelm goes away. So shame is a very, very intricate device that human beings will slow down, hide, become overwhelmed, isolate, or they will be isolated by other people. So shame has 5 main components, the way that I talk about it. Wrong, and you can write this down, okay? Write these 5 components down. Wrong, bad, broken, not enough, too much. Okay? I'm going to say it again. Wrong, bad, broken, not enough, too much. When that is applied to a person, the person sees that something is inherently dysfunctional about them. Okay? And perceives that something is wrong with them, right? And let's just go with the wrong. When you perceive that something is inherently wrong with you, it removes you from the normal, quote unquote, normal way a human is supposed, that's one of my favorite words in the world, right? Is supposed to, or should, which is another favorite word, perform in order to be an acceptable member of humanity or society or a family or a nation. You have to perform in this way. Otherwise, something's wrong with you. Something's bad about you. Something is broken about you. Something is not enough about you, or something is too much about you for you to be considered part of the norm, for you to be considered part of the herd. And so you become isolated. Okay? You become isolated, and we see this in cancel culture, right? You become isolated, and people will throw the shame finger at you. Shame, wait, and do the shame wag. Shame, shame, shame. Everybody knows your name. And so you become isolated. Now, human beings we are designed to be in community. We are pack animals, right? We are designed to be in community. We're designed to be with one another. We're designed to be in families. We're designed to be in societies, right? We're designed for these things. And when we become isolated, we start to become uneasy. We become diseased. And when we become diseased, our bodies break down for reacclimate, to be reabsorbed into the planet. Okay. I can get into a whole semantic around that. I'm not going to get into it right now. The one thing that I've found with most of the people that I've worked with as human beings in hospitals, as human beings in coaching, as human beings, period, is that they feel very lonely, right? Loneliness kills. And if you want someone to be lonely, you shame them, right? You shame them. And if they don't adhere to what you want them to do, you shame them. You tell them, you're bad, go over there in that corner, right? You put you in the shame box, put you in the corner, right? And when you get put in the corner, you are ashamed. You're by yourself. And when people let you back in, that's when you learn the shame device. Like when kids, I know I got put in a corner when I was in school for acting ways that the teacher didn't like or was considered inappropriate. And so what would happen was I would get put into the corner, or I would, they had this crap called a dunce cap, and they would put this cap on your head, and you'd have to wear this cap and sit in the corner for everyone to look at because you misbehaved. And so everybody knew that your assignment was something wrong with you, right? You misbehaved, you were too much, or you were too loud, right? Or you didn't show up enough, right? You weren't prompt enough. Like, there are all these different things. And so we get shamed, we get isolated, and we learn from that experience that if we behave in a certain way, we will be accepted into the society, into the herd, and all of this stuff. And we've embedded this type of device into our society, and we've normalized it. And since we've normalized it, people will be like, shame's a normal part of life. And it normalized does not mean it's natural, right? And this is the thing that people say to me all the time: shaming is normal. Yeah, normal things don't mean things are natural, and normalized things don't mean that things are highly functional for a human being to be in an easy space. And I'm not talking about easy like it's a cakewalk. I'm talking about easy like free from dis-ease. Okay, things being simple doesn't mean that there's no dis-ease. And so this is a thing, y'all. And we do this all the time. And when you look at cancel culture and the way people are being canceled on the internet, and people are being canceled on TV, and people are being canceled by their families and friends. When you look at what happened with the recent pandemic situation with that virus that was going around, there were people who were being shamed for not wearing masks, or people who were being shamed for wearing masks. There still are people who are being shamed for not getting vaccinated, and people who are being shamed for being vaccinated. This is how you get people to be isolated. And you can isolate people as an individual, and you can isolate people as a group. It doesn't make a difference. Well, it does make a difference, but it's still isolation. So shame causes isolation. It causes hiding. It causes conformity. And when we conform to things that do not feel natural to us as individuals, it causes dis-ease in the body. It causes dis-ease in the emotional complex, because there's a denial of the inherent natural space of the self that is the internal guidance system. And when you look at emotions are your internal guidance system to tell you if you're in ease, moving towards ease, or in disease, or moving towards disease. That's your inherent guidance system. And when we're taught to not listen to our inherent guidance system because shame overrides all of it, it becomes an issue. Shame can teach you to not listen to your internal guidance system, because shame activates so many aspects of your internal guidance system, you don't know what to do with any of it, right? If somebody tells you that something is wrong, if somebody tells you that something is wrong with you, right, or you did something wrong, right? Because guilt is to do something wrong. That's a whole other topic, and I'll do another podcast on guilt, which is shame's close cousin. And just to backtrack real quick, guilt and shame, there's a difference. The difference between, many people don't know the difference between guilt and shame. Shame comes from the idea that something is wrong, bad, broken, not enough, too much about you, right? And so, if we could just round it off into something is wrong with you inherently, that's shame. Guilt comes from the idea that you have done something wrong, that your activity is wrong, that things that you do are wrong, right? That they're broken, right? That what you've done is broken. What you've done is bad. What you've done is too much. What you've done is not enough for me, right? So it's the same wrong, bad, broken, not enough, too much, but it's in the action space. Okay. And so they go hand in hand, because if I've done something wrong, so that probably means that something is wrong with me. Right. So shame and guilt go hand in hand, and they activate very, very similar complexes of emotional overwhelm. Shame, though, shame is the undercurrent for all of it. And shame disrupts everything, because when a belief structure comes in that you are inherently wrong, that you are inherently bad, it disrupts every aspect of the self, and it causes you to hide. Right? And so there are very insidious ways to hide around both of these complexes, but shame is what we're talking about. And shame is what we're talking about today. So the shame complexes that come into play can cause a person to be in the most overwhelmed that they've ever been in. And most people, when they tell me that they're feeling overwhelmed, I ask them what they're feeling overwhelmed about. It's usually that they have a lot of different things to navigate, and they don't feel like they're enough to be able to navigate all of those things. And so we peel back the layers one by one. And it starts with, I'm going to give you some actionable remedies, some actionable spaces to explore with this, y'all, with yourselves and with your coaching clients and with the people that you know in psychedelic spaces, outside of psychedelic spaces, and psychedelic integration, is to first bring a person into a space of awareness. What are you experiencing? What are you experiencing? Okay. Can you start with I feel? And then you get the list. I feel sad. I feel angry. I feel frustrated. I feel anxious. And you write all of them down. And then which one, right? After that, after you identify all of those things, I feel, which one of these things, and you go through the list. I feel angry. I feel hurt. I feel sad. Which one of these things brings up the most charge? Which one is the biggest one right now? Well, it's this one. Okay, so let's leave all the other ones out, and let's just lean into the main one right now, the one that's giving you the most charge. What would you need for this charge to go away? What would you need? And I'm not saying that you're going to get it right now or you're going to do it right now, but what would you need? And the person can come up with their own remedy for it, and they have it inside. They know what it is inside. They may have an idea that it's impossible or it's unreachable and all of this stuff, but they're not even looking at the possibilities. And so what you want to do is you want to bring them into the awareness of what they're experiencing, have the list, bring it into the space where they are observing the one main thing for right now, and what would make it go away. Even if you had a magic wand and you could wave, what would make this go away? What would make your anger go away? And you lean into it, right? What would make your sadness go away? Okay, and tell me more about that, and tell me more about that, and tell me more. They have the answers. The emotions are there to tell them these things. And as they start to say the answers, okay, what are you experiencing now in regards to that? How's the charge? Is the charge still where it was? Tell me where it is now. Okay? They may say it's more, it's less. Don't cue them into, is it more? Is it feeling better? No. No, is it more? Is it better? What are you experiencing right now? Is it different than it was before we started this exercise? And you let them answer their own questions. You're there to guide them back into themselves. You're coaching them. This is just something you can do with yourself as well. You can write these things down. So I invite you to write all these cues down. Write them down. What are they aware? What are you experiencing? Write them down, right? Each thing that I feel, and have them start with I feel, and have yourself do this too. I feel this. I feel this. I feel, until there's no more words to say I feel. Okay. And so you want to have that list so they can actually see the overwhelm that's coming from all the different things that they're feeling. And remember, there's a difference between sensations and emotions. Okay. Sensations are, I feel hot. I feel pressure. I feel pain. I feel itchy. Those are sensations. Okay. Your emotions are, I feel sad. I feel angry. I feel frustrated. Those are emotions. And so what you want to do is you want to get them to say the emotions, right? They can, if they have itchy and all that stuff, this is not what you're looking for. You can just disregard that for the moment unless it's attached to an emotion. And that's a whole other podcast, right? So let's keep it basic right now. I feel angry. I feel sad. I feel hurt. I feel anxious. I feel until they slow down. Because once they slow down, the list is there. They've already covered all the things that they're feeling, and you'll see their physiology. You'll see their body start to slow down because they're actually becoming aware of all the things that they're experiencing in the overwhelm. And then when you take it to the space of simplifying it even more, okay, cool. Which one has the most charge? Well, it's the anger. Okay, cool. Tell me more about the anger. Well, I feel angry when this. Okay, I feel angry when. I feel angry. Say, I feel angry and then when, or I feel angry that, right? And you just have them go through it. I feel angry when this. I feel angry when that. I feel angry. And you have them go through it. Cool. And then what is it that would make this anger go away? And the chances are they'll go into, well, it's not going to happen because this and this person, and they'll blame everybody else and all this stuff. That's fine. Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing that. If you had a magic wand, and you could make this anger go, something could make this anger go away, what would it be? And they'll be like, well, if I had $1 million and my husband was just out of the house for 5 minutes, there you go, right? You start to find, tell me more about the husband thing. Tell me more about the brother thing. Tell me more about the money thing. Tell me more about it. And you'll start to see that their physiology will start to slow down and they'll start to relax more. And then ask them, what are you experiencing now that we've talked about this? How's the charge? Don't tell them, is it better or worse? Nope. Don't ask them that. How's the charge? Okay. And so this is how you kind of go down the rabbit hole around shame. Shame is a matrix emotion. Okay. Write that down. Shame is a matrix emotion. Guilt is a matrix emotion. They encompass a lot of emotions and they cause the system to overwhelm. Okay. When you get into overwhelm is an emotion. Write that down. Okay. Overwhelm is an emotion. And the remedy for overwhelm is to simplify. Whenever somebody says that they're in overwhelm, you can use this to simplify. Okay. And so shame comes from the ideas of something being wrong, bad, broken, not enough, or too much about somebody or something. And so moving into the next space on this, we have the shame projection space, right? So I can project shame inside myself. I can accept shame. I can accept someone else's idea of me as being shameful, or I can feel the pointing. I can feel their projection to me, but I can also broadcast shame. I can broadcast that something is wrong with somebody. Something is bad about that. Right? Or that person, something is not enough about that person or that thing. Something is too much about that person or that thing. Right? Something is wrong, bad, broken, not enough, or too much about a person, place, or thing, a noun. Right? And when I project that, I'm actually moving that energy in that person's direction or that thing's direction. And so that is a broadcast space. And broadcasting shame is just as dysfunctional and just as controlling as receiving shame. And so it goes in two different directions. And so being mindful of how shame works in those directions is very, very important, because your clients will say, my mother told me I was bad. My mother told me, and I feel bad about myself. And then they'll turn around and be like, well, they're messed up for doing that. They're a bad person for doing that. Bam, right? Shame device right there. Okay. So since they're bad, they need to perform a certain way. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about how that person would perform. Tell me more about that. This is a space that people get into that they don't realize that they are shaming other people. And when they're shaming other people, and this is part of a lot of the work that I did with myself, when I was shaming people, based on the shame dynamics that I had projected at me, I took those, internalized them, and then I projected them at other people. And so I was projecting shame on everybody. I was like, that's wrong. That's bad. That's not enough, right? You're not enough. Let me help you because something's wrong with you. So I'm actually fortifying a victim. Oh, shoot. I'm fortifying a victim by protecting people from themselves because there's something bad about them. There's something wrong with them. There's something broken about them. There's something that's not enough about them. There's something too much that they need to be fixed. I'm actually broadcasting shame. And in that shame broadcast, I'm the rescuer, right? I was rescuing everybody from life. I'm a nurse, for crying out loud. I'm a nurse, right? And so I have this codependent need to fix everything and everybody and rescue everybody from themselves. So I saw the entire world as shameful. There's something wrong with everybody. You can ask Cole. You know, when we first got together, I was like, girl, I have no hope for humanity. The humanity is fundamentally broken. I have no hope for people. I have no hope for myself. None. Zero. And that's one of the things that my psychedelic experiences actually helped me to shift out of, being in that seriously ingrained program that humans were inherently broken. And when I stepped away from that space, it changed everything. And so that broadcast that I had, that everybody was shameful, something was wrong with everybody, that led me into a space of dis-ease because I was angry at people for being broken. I was sad about them being broken. I was frustrated about them being broken and wrong. And I was hurt. I was all of these things. And I was in overwhelm all the time. And so I didn't sleep. I had insomnia for 30 years, y'all. 30 years I had insomnia. I didn't sleep more than 4 to 6 hours a night. No, not 4 to 6, excuse me. 2 to 4 hours a night. Okay, that's max. 4 hours was the top I was getting for 30 years. And so that overwhelm took me into a space where I couldn't think straight. I couldn't do anything. And I had to get into spaces where I couldn't think about anything else except work. It's one of the reasons why nursing was a thing for me, because I didn't have to think about or perceive or feel all of those things. And so I got distracted. And so I was easily controlled and put into the workforce because of my overwhelm. You see how this works? And so shame is a very, very intricate device that can be used to control the self, to control other people, to control situations, to control societies, to control people. And we will use the media to control people, to influence people, okay? Because control is, I'm going to do a whole podcast on control. Control is not a real thing in my eyes. It's an idea, right? It's a wonderful idea to play with. But I was always trying to control people, and I was unable to do it because people cannot be controlled. They can be influenced. And there's a nuance to that language, and that's a whole other podcast. And let me know if you want to hear about that in a podcast, because I'll do it. But I wanted to give y'all a little bit of an intro for shame, because I talk about it a lot. It's the undercurrent of, I would dare say, 99% of the issues that human beings have is that we live in shame complexes, that we shame ourselves, we shame one another, we shame other people, we shame societies, we shame religions, we shame governments, we shame nations, we shame clothing, we shame hairstyles, right? We shame skin complexions and colors. We shame clear skin. We shame blemished skin. We shame people for having body fat. We shame people for having muscles. We shame people for everything, y'all. And there's a broadcast going out all the time about everything. So my option, the space that I'm opting into is to opt out of shame as much and as often as possible. And when I catch myself, I adjust it and I actually make it known. Hey, you know what? I was just using shame language and I want to change my statement. Is that okay with you? I'm always checking in with people and making myself vulnerable in that space to be able to admit that so people can see what it looks like. So that's shame, y'all. I said I was going to keep it basic and it went a little deep, but you know, that's how things go. When we flow and go down the rabbit hole, right? So I know you love this podcast. Please subscribe so that you don't miss another one. Rate it and review it. Tell a friend and share this podcast with someone you love. Share this podcast with somebody who you believe will benefit from it. And if there's anything else that you'd like me to discuss or talk about on the Psychedelic Coach podcast, please join me on Instagram or email or whatever, and just tell me what you want to hear about, and I'll talk to you about it. I want this information to be accessible to everyone, okay? You don't have to come to my workshops. You don't have to come to my trainings. I want this information to be accessible to everyone. And come into my workshops, come into my trainings. You'll get a whole lot more than just a podcast worth. Okay, we'll do an interactive situation in person. There's nothing like being in person with me and Cole, and she's so magical, y'all. Hit us up, go to condorcoach.com and take a look. Hit the links that are in that are in the podcast liner notes and go take a look at what's going on. Visit us on Instagram. I'm on Instagram at The Condor Approach. And I'm on Instagram at Tahfree, Tahfree. Would love to hear from you. Check out what I'm doing on emotional navigation on Instagram. It's pretty awesome stuff. I love you. I'm going to have a lot more to share with you around emotional navigation. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being alive. Thank you for spending the time with me. And remember,
integration is not optional.